The Blues season for 2019. I'm here again reviewing a Blues season. I generally don't swear on the channel, so I'll keep it G-rated. It's not all bad stuff. There are some good stuff for the Blues this year. There's a bit of bad, and there is some things to look forward to for next year. The ultimate bad part, if I start with that, is the position on the table, 13th. So only two teams below them. 5 wins, a draw, and 10 losses. Yeah, it's not the prettiest record. It's an improvement on last year. Last year was 4 wins and 12 losses. So that's cool. Maybe next year we get 7 wins, and then the year after we get 9. Maybe we're a playoff team. But it wasn't this year. Admittedly, they did have a new coach, and the first year is a pretty hard one to judge a coach because they still need to get everything sorted. They've got a bunch of players who they didn't sign or they didn't scout or whatever they haven't worked with. So it is tough in the first year. So I suppose if you're looking at this with a very, very kind eye, then you could say, well, that's a decent result. There were some positives. If you're a long-suffering Blues fan, you look at that and kind of go, it's more of the same. So yeah, I will start with the good stuff. The good stuff kind of raises more questions than it answers, but I'll still go over them. So I've had a look at their stats. What were the Blues doing well in terms of their play? Second average run meters per game behind only the Crusaders. So the Blues do not have a problem running the ball up the field and gaining yards. The number one team for getting over the advantage line, more likely than any other team to get over the advantage line with each time they run it up. Number one team for going 7 or more phases, so no problem retaining possession. Third for line breaks, pretty good stat to have. I mean, that's kind of what leads to the run meters is your line breaks. Second for pick and drives, which is an interesting kind of strategic choice, but they've got some pretty good loosies to do that kind of thing. 15th for missed tackles, so missing the fewest tackles per game. That's a positive stat. Also probably speaks to the fact that they had more possession if they're doing 7+ phases, so maybe the other teams don't have the ball as much to make the Blues miss the tackles, but either way, 15th for missed tackles is a pretty good stat. 14th for run meters conceded, and again, if they've got the ball, the other team can't run the ball at them. 13th for line breaks conceded, goes with the run meters conceded. 5th for penalties won, so on the correct side of the ledger with the ref, and the number one team for forcing ruck and maul penalties. There's a lot to like there. Good at the breakdown, good defensively, good on attack. Those do not read like stats of a team that finished 13th. So this is what I mean by it raises more questions than it answers. What is wrong with the Blues that they can't convert those numbers into more wins? They seem to have a problem with finishing off tries. They can set things up, but that last bit they cannot execute. For mine, there's no stat that really shows that. They just, I don't know if they choke or what. It's disappointing. Negative stats for them, it's a tactical choice. They're the 15th team, so dead last for kicks in play and kick meters. Admittedly, they don't have a kicker with a particularly big boot, but the Blues don't kick it that much. That's fine if you can make that up with run meters, and they do. So it's a tactical choice. They are also 15th for their goal kicking percentage. Dead last. Average goal kicking percentage for the Blues is 65%, which is, you see better at some club rugby games. 65% for professionals is pretty poor. 11th, despite all the stats above, those run meters, tackle busts, line breaks. Was tackle busts one? No, it was line breaks. But they're only 11th. This is what I mean. They're not able to convert all those positive stats into tries. And also their set piece was pretty average. 11th in winning their scrum ball, so towards the bottom end of the pack. 13th for winning their line-out percentage, so pretty much near the bottom. 12th for winning the opponent's ball at the line-out, so again, not very good. They were the 8th team for errors, so that's kind of mid-table. And 7th for coughing up the ball in a form of a turnover. So again, mid-table. So yeah, it just seems the finishing and the set piece really let the Blues down. Kind of key areas plus the goal kicking. Now the goal kicking also becomes crucial when you look at some of the results for the Blues this year. Before I go to that, a few mentions for some players. Malani Nanai in his last season with the Blues was the third player for average run meters per game, and I believe he was the number one for overall. Rico Ioane was 7th for run meters average per game, the number one for average line breaks per game. His brother Akira was the 4th best forward for run meters per game and the 5th best forward for tackle busts. So similar to last year, many of the good stats at the Blues are generated by the Ioane brothers, and Milani Nana definitely had his best season for the Blues yet. Disappointing seeing as he's going. The results. I've had a look at all their losses, and their average losing margin was only 7 points. So on average, the Blues lose by 7 points, which is within a bonus point, which is close, which means those games are winnable, if not for poor finishing, poor goal kicking, that kind of thing. Case in point, first result of the season is a loss to the Crusaders at home, 22 points to 24. Blues have a chance to win it with a penalty, miss the kick. Next result, they lose to the Sharks away in South Africa, 26-7. That's probably their worst result of the season in terms of the score or points scored. They lose to the Jaguares, 23 points to 19. They win their first win of the season at home to the Sunwolves, 28-20 over on the North Shore. Not very convincing, but at that point of the season, the Sunwolves looked better than they ended up finishing. They beat the Highlanders at home, 33-26. And I've highlighted that one on my notes because that was their first win over a New Zealand team in an age. So if there's one positive you can take from the Blues season, it's the fact that hopefully, mentally, they've taken a step forward in getting results over New Zealand teams. They beat the Stormers the next week, 24-9 at home. And then their fourth game on their winning run was the Waratahs, 32-29 at home. That was a close game. So yeah, I mean, I guess you look at those results, the Stormers didn't make the playoffs, the Sunwolves didn't make the playoffs, the Waratahs didn't make the playoffs, and the Highlanders just scraped into the playoffs. So they didn't beat the cream of the crop, but they still got 4 wins in a row. And at that point, I was wondering, yeah, maybe the Blues are the real deal. Follow that up with a loss to the Chiefs, 33-29 down in Hamilton. That's still close. They lose to the Highlanders away, 34-12. Again, that's probably one of their worst results of the season in terms of the score. They lose to the Brumbies 26-21. Fords got dominated in that one again. This is the set piece leading them down. They lost to the Hurricanes away 22-12, so 10 points. They beat the Chiefs at home 23 points to 8. Second win over a New Zealand team, so very encouraging. Then they lose to the Crusaders 19-11. They draw with the Bulls in a game which was pretty disappointing. They couldn't get a result, 22-all. They lose to the Reds in a pretty gut-wrenching one over in Brisbane, 29-28, in a game that was a must-win for the Blues. The season was on the line. The Red season was already done and dusted, and the Blues couldn't get a result. And then they lose the final game of the season, 29-24 to the Hurricanes away, against the Hurricanes team that was kind of largely shifted up with one eye on the playoffs. So, 2 really good results, the wins over the Highlanders and the Chiefs. They beat some of the also-rans alongside them in the Stormers, the Sunwolves, the Waratahs. Key loss to the Reds is disappointing. If you can look at some good losses, they lost to the Crusaders by 2 at home, to the Jaguares by 4 points away, and then to the Crusaders 8 points away. That's the 2 teams that made the finals, and they didn't lose by more than 8 points. That's kind of encouraging, but still very disappointing that so many of these results that were close, they couldn't get them over the line for whatever reason. As I said, finishing. Maybe they need a mental skills coach. I don't know. But there's definitely something rotten at the Blues for that kind of thing. For next season, I'm hoping it goes better than this year, of course. I'm hoping for a better finish than 13th. They've got some pretty good players, and I'll go over their core ones. They are losing Matt Moulds. This is not all the players are losing, but some of them. Moulds, Scruffton, Pulu, Nanai is probably the biggest one. Probably Nonu. And Nonu, to be fair, was a lot better than I expected him to be. I thought he was going to be a bit past it, but he actually looked pretty solid. What happens with Sonny Bill? I don't know. I don't think he's signed on for next year. Didn't play many games. I think 6 games, and some of those from the bench, so wasn't really a big factor in the Blues season this year. They are getting in Finlay Christie from the Hurricanes, so it kind of replaces Pulu, I suppose. But if you look at the core squad that's still there, and this is not all the players that are still there, but I just looked at these kind of key players for the Blues. You still got Parsons, which some might say is a detriment rather than a benefit. He's experienced. I don't know if Parsons starts for any other New Zealand Super Rugby team, but he's been there and done it, so solid but not spectacular. Tuangafasi and Tu Nukuafe are still there for next year, so that's probably the front row sorted unless Apisai can dislodge Parsons from the starting role. Tui Polotu's still there in the second row. Gibson, Papali'i, Robinson and Akira Ioane makes a pretty nice back row for next year still. They've still got Otere Black, Harry Plummer and Stephen Perofeta on the books for number 10. That's still a problem. None of those guys are that good. They're all okay. Perofeta didn't play this year because of injury, so who knows? They've still got Faiane, who was okay this year. Rico Ioane is still there as well. Caleb Clark's still there. So there's still a pretty decent core of the squad. I'm sure some of the other guys will pick up contracts as well who played this year, but those are the guys who I believe are already kind of set in stone for next year. So they've certainly got a squad to build around. It's whether Leon McDonald can get more out of them for next year. They need to improve their set piece. They probably could use a good ball winning, like aerial dominating lock, because Tuipulotu, whilst he's a pretty good lock, is not really known for that kind of thing. So they could use a good lock at line out time. Their props need a front up at scrum time. Too many times they were on the back foot. So yeah, that's the Blues for 2019. It wasn't the best. It had a few good moments. The home record was actually pretty good. They won 5 of their games at home and drew 1. I think they only lost, must be 2, is it? Because it was 8 games. But they didn't win a single game away. Not one. So last season they couldn't win at home for love nor money. They only won 1 home game all season and won 3 away. So still not quite there. You guys let me know your thoughts on the Blues. Is next year going to be our year? Can we push for a playoff spot? Is it going to be more of the same? Can Leon McDonald unlock this team to get them to that next level? It's been pretty frustrating. As I said, a few good moments. It wasn't all doom and gloom. They just need to convert some of that good work and finish it off. You guys let me know your thoughts, and I will talk to you again soon. See you later.